Okay, hello everybody, and to all the people that are watching the replay because we know that moms are busy and doing all kinds of things. My name is Brooke, and I am the founder of Momentum Marketplace and the host of our wonderful summer school that we've been putting together for you guys. And today we have a wonderful guest. Her name is Meg Wheeler, and we actually had her on our podcast. You can go and listen to her episode. I sent that out in the email, so you can listen to more about her story and her journey. She is a fabulous mom boss that has multiple things going on, including a podcast and a company that she runs, and she does consulting. And today we are going to have her share about financially fit businesses because she is our financial expert that we're so excited to have today. She has a background in finance, and I'm sure she will share a little bit more about that. I am going to hand it over to her because this is not about me. This is all about Meg today, and we're so excited to have her. So thank you for being on, Meg.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here. So, okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Hopefully I don't screw this up. Tech is not my thing.
That's okay. We all have our strong suits, but yes,
okay, hopefully you guys can see it. Cool. Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I am here today to talk all about how to set up and manage the money stuff in your business so that you can have a financially fit business, not stress about this stuff, and focus on the parts of your business that you love to do. So today I'm, basically just going to teach you some very, tactical, simple things that you need to focus on. I don't want this to be overwhelming. I know that the money stuff tends to freak people out. So stick with me. I've got your back. Hopefully this won't be that bad. I always say this, but turn off all distractions, especially if we're talking about money and numbers, because I feel like sometimes you can glaze over in these topics. So just a little reminder to do that. So here's the thing. I'm guessing if you've tuned in today, it's possibly because you feel stressed about the money stuff. If you're just starting a business, maybe it's feeling stressed because you don't know what to do. If you're already in your business, maybe it's feeling stressed because the money's not coming in quite yet, or you don't know if it's going to come in, or you're just not sure how to handle all of the stuff around money, like accounting and taxes. I'm guessing you maybe also feel overwhelmed, which is pretty much how most of my clients feel when I start working with them. The money stuff can definitely be overwhelming. And I think sometimes it can distract us away from the parts of our business that we really do love. And that's not a good thing. So that's why I'm here to help you guys out today. Lastly, you may feel frustrated. I think every single person I talk to about the money stuff tells me that they are frustrated, that there are so many rules, that they don't understand what they're supposed to be doing. It's just really annoying. So if you're feeling that way, I've got you. Okay, so a little bit about me. I am Meg Wheeler. I am a former CPA, so I spent quite a bit of time in public accounting, working with major corporations. I also worked with nonprofits and private wealth clients. And I actually walked away from corporate a couple of years ago. I left my CPA license behind because I don't actually do tax returns anymore. And I started my first business. I now have two businesses. So the first one is called One for Women. It's an online platform and community for women who want to support each other. We also have a podcast. We've got a marketplace, lots of fun stuff. But then I also started this business, which is my business money consulting business. And I started it because as I was meeting women and talking to entrepreneurs, I realized that so many people are running amazing businesses, but don't have a clue about the financial aspects of those businesses. So I knew I could take my skills and my experience to help, and that's why I'm doing what I do now. So to give you a sense of what I actually do in my business, I help my clients with everything from accounting and tax. So that's getting the accounting system set up, helping them understand what their tax obligations are, to budgeting. So we do a lot of budgeting work, especially with new business owners who are trying to figure out where to spend their money and how to plan for revenue coming in. I also do a lot of work with my clients on profit maximization. So that's really diving into your numbers, understanding where you're the most profitable, where you have the most room for growth, understanding cash flow, which is pretty much king for all of us small business owners. And then I do a lot of money mindset work with my clients as well. So that's really helping us women get over our money blocks about making money, about investing in ourselves, and about demanding and charging our worth. So that's kind of the work I do now. I am a mom, which is why I'm here. I do have a 2-year-old Jack, and I'm also a dog mom. I have 2 fabulous pups. They're not pups anymore. They're both old men, Sebastian and Sparkles. So I always say I'm a mom of 3. So, okay, let's actually go ahead and dive in. Can you imagine what it would be like if you knew that the money stuff was handled and you could actually focus on the work you love? This is one of the biggest things that women say to me when I start working with them is like, I just don't want to worry about this. I just want to know that this is under control so I can go back to doing the stuff I love, right? That would be pretty great. So running a financially fit business means that you are no longer stressed out, or at least not stressed out about the money stuff, that you feel confident that you understand the financial side of your business. And I think that's the key piece there, because that's the thing that so many women who come to me they say, I'm not a business person. I don't really know about the financial stuff. So that's a big piece of running a financially fit business. And then also being able to use the financial information in your business to make better decisions and ultimately to make more money in your business. Like, that's the key thing here. This isn't just about making sure your taxes are filed on time or whatnot. That's important. But really the work I do goes so much further beyond that. It goes to helping women actually make the kind of money they need to make in the most effective and efficient ways possible, so that we can have the lives we want, so that we can be with our kids more, we can travel more, whatever it may be. So, okay, I've got 3 kind of core steps for you guys. The first is to treat your business like a real business. And here's the thing, even if whether you're just starting out or you've been in business a while, everything I'm going to tell you guys in this section is critically important. And I see a lot of people who come work with me who have been in business for a few years and they're still not doing some of these things. So I don't want you to feel like, oh, I'm too far down my business to focus on this stuff, or I'm too new, I'll worry about this later. This stuff is really important to have, have in your business as soon as you can. So treating your business like a real business is number 1. I'm going to dive into what that means. I love this quote actually from Henry Ford: whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. And I think that really goes to the heart of this idea that if you treat your business like a real business, then it's going to act and function like a real business. If you don't treat it like a real business, if you treat it like a hobby, then that's all it's ever going to be, and your profits are going to reflect that. So your attitude towards your business will determine other people's attitudes towards your business. The very first thing to do when we want to treat our business like a real business is to choose the right structure for your business. So most people I work with who have started businesses, they just start, which is great. And I love that. Like, I love that people are like, I just have an idea and I'm going to go for it. And they rarely think about the structure for their business. Usually this kind of comes into play a few months down the line. They've started to make some money. They're thinking, hey, I better actually do something with this and get it in order. But the earlier you can start having this conversation with yourself, the better. And so when I'm talking about structure, I'm talking about your legal entity structure. Now, some of the ones listed here, and I'll talk about each of these, are not actually legal entities. They're either just by default what you are, or they're actually tax classifications. So bear with me. I know this gets a little weedy, but we'll get through it. So if you start your business, by default, you are a sole proprietor. And that's in pretty much, if you're not in the US, that's pretty much the case wherever you are. And so a sole proprietor is not a legal entity type. It is just a classification. By default, it's what you are. An LLC or a C corporation or a partnership, those are legal entity types. So in order to put your business into one of those types, you would actually have to go through some steps. Usually there's some documentation. You register with your state or your province if you're in Canada. And there's some formalities involved in it. Some of the benefits of considering something like an LLC or a C corporation is that you, as the business owner, can have personal liability protection, meaning that if your business ever gets sued, your personal assets like your house or your car will likely not be collected to pay those debts. So that's a pretty important protection to have. So when people come to me and they say, well, I'm just a one-woman show and I don't, it seems kind of silly to have like a whole company set up. I always say that to them. I say, you may be a one-woman show and you may not be making that much money right now, but you could be sued tomorrow and your personal assets could be at risk. And I don't say that to scare you. It's just a reality of business. And there are some steps you can take to protect yourself from that. The last one on this list is an S corporation. It's a U.S. Designation only, and it's actually not a legal entity. It's a tax classification. So you would form an LLC or a C corporation, and then you would actually file with the IRS to become an S corp. I'm not going to go into all the details about why an S corp is better, but when you start making pretty decent money, when you start getting into the 6 figures and especially into 7 figures, an S corporation has some tax benefits that can be pretty advantageous for the small business owner who doesn't necessarily want to become a C corporation, but still wants to take advantage of some of those tax benefits. So first step, I highly recommend to choose a structure for your business. Now, if this feels super overwhelming, I get it. I want you to just even start thinking about these. Just start researching them. Like, you don't even need to make a decision or even try to start to figure out which one you would be, but just start to get comfortable with these terms and knowing what these mean as a first step. Down the road, you can meet with a lawyer, they can walk you through all of these things, and you can actually make a decision on which one is right for your business. But for now, if this feels overwhelming, I just want you to be aware that these exist, some of the benefits of them, and start to do your research on them. So that's the first part of this. The second part is to separate your business funds. So I put 4 reasons here why I think it's important to separate your business funds, but I want to really stress this point because this is one of the biggest mistakes I see new business owners make. And what I mean by separate your business funds is twofold. The first is to have a separate bank account, and the second is to treat every dollar that comes into your business as totally separate than your personal life and accounts and all of that. So the first reason for this, kind of the basic reason, is just accurate bookkeeping. So if I had one bank account where all of my business revenues went into, and then I was paying my personal bills out of there, it would be really hard for me to actually have accurate records on what was happening in my business, the revenues that were coming in, the expenses that were going out. So that's just the first reason. The second reason is, especially here in the US, a lot of jurisdictions have what we call hobby rules. And very briefly, what this means is if you're running a business for 3 years or more, and you haven't made a profit in that business yet, the IRS may actually come in and classify that as a hobby and not a business. And the result of that is that you may not be able to take those losses against your other income on your tax return. So you may be sitting here thinking, well, that's a problem if I don't have profits for 3 years. And you're right, that's definitely a business problem otherwise. But a lot of businesses do find themselves in this situation, especially if you're developing a product or technology and there's kind of a longer ramp up until when you actually launch the product or get profitable. Remember, a lot of startups are not profitable in their first few years. So if you're finding yourself in that bucket, having separate business funds to really substantiate that you are a legitimate business can go a long way if the IRS tries to come in and classify you as a hobby. The third is a clear audit trail. So nobody wants to talk about the IRS or the tax authorities, but if you do get audited and the IRS agent shows up on your doorstep and you hand them, a joint bank account that has all your business money and all your personal money, it's going to be a really big problem for you. I guarantee it, because they're going to sit there and make you sort through every single thing, and they're going to ask you a lot of questions about every single thing that you claim is a business expense. It's so much easier to just have a separate business account, have a separate business accounting system and just treat it all separately. And the last thing is it's more professional. I can tell you that when I go to pay vendors and they want me to send them a Venmo payment to their personal account, I get a little seed of doubt in the back of my mind, and I think, ooh, are they a real business? Like, are they going to be around a few months from now? Like, why am I sending money to their personal account? So that's, for me, and I think a lot of people I've talked to, it really just sort of gives them a bit of a reputation about not taking their business seriously. Remember, it goes back to the way you treat your business is how other people are going to treat your business. So when we're talking about separating your business funds, separate business bank account, and if you're asking, the number one question I usually get at this point is, okay, great, well then how do I pay myself? How do I actually take money out of the business? It's pretty simple. every month, every week, every quarter, however often you want to do it, you will make you'll write yourself a check, or you'll do a transfer, whatever it is, from your business bank account to your personal bank account. And you'll just record that as, owner's pay. It's that simple. So you can still take the money out to pay your bills and to afford your lifestyle. You just need to keep the two accounts separate and have there be one transfer between the two. So hopefully that makes sense. So the third thing to do in this step is to register your business. Now, if you form an LLC or a C corporation or a partnership, then this is really already done through that formation. But if you decide to stay a sole proprietor, meaning you don't decide to become a legal entity for your business, then you'll typically need to register your business with the state, sometimes with the town or the city that you live in. And this is basically to tell them that you are operating a business in their jurisdiction. So again, this is usually at the state level. And it's one of the things you can do as well. So I get this question a lot of, okay, well, if I'm a sole proprietor, can I run my business under another name? So my business is actually Meg K. Wheeler LLC. But if I wasn't an LLC, if I was a sole proprietor and I wanted to be, Money with Meg, well, I could do that, but I would then file what's called a DBA, a doing business as, with my state to tell them, hey, I'm running a business called Money with Meg. So it's a pretty straightforward step. Usually you can find out how to do this by going to your Secretary of State's website, but it's definitely something I recommend, because if you don't take this step, there can often be penalties and consequences for running a business without telling them that you're running a business. The next one is to get legal documents in place. Now, it's usually at this point when I'm doing this training that people say, I'm really confused. I thought we were talking about money. Why are we talking about legal stuff? And here's what I always say at this point. So even though, yes, you're right, we're definitely talking more about legal stuff than money stuff right now, having all of this legal stuff in place does a few things on the money side of stuff. First of all, it can help ensure that you get paid. Second of all, it can help minimize the amounts of fines or penalties or even taxes that you have to pay, because you've got the right structure, you've got the right documentation in place. So even though it may not seem like the two are part of the same conversation, they absolutely go hand in hand. And addressing some of this legal stuff up front can really make a huge difference in terms of the money that your business takes in and the money that your business sends out. So especially in this case, I always say get legal documents in place. I've listed 5 here that most businesses, if not all businesses, need. But the last 2 are actually the ones that I really just want to talk about here real fast. Now, terms of use and privacy policy and disclaimer, those are all ones that will tend to go on your website and be sent to your clients if you work with clients. I'm not going to go into great detail about those. I think you can Google them, find out a lot of great information pretty easily. But the service agreement and the contractor agreement, these are the ones that set up the terms between you and someone else. So if you are in a service-based business, and you're bringing in clients, that service agreement is going to lay out the terms between you and that person. Here's why that matters so much for the money stuff. I work with a lot of clients who will come to me and say that one of their biggest problems is cash flow, or one of their biggest problems is getting paid on time. And my first question to them is always, okay, well, what do your contracts say? And usually they'll go, what contracts? This is why it's important to have really good contracts or service agreements in place, because it lays out the terms of how much you're going to get paid, when you're going to get paid, what's going to happen if they don't pay you. And that's the important part. So when we're talking about the money stuff in our business and running a financially fit business, it's so critically important that we have made clear expectations with the people we're working with, how that money stuff is going to go. The flip side of that is the contractor agreement. So if you hire somebody to do work for you, hire a photographer or a website designer or whatever it is, it's equally as important that those terms are laid out for you, even though you're the one on the hook for the money. It's going to help you manage the money in your business so much better if you know what the expectations are, when you're going to owe money, how that's all going to work, what's going to happen if they don't deliver the product for you. So make sure to get those in place. You can work with a lawyer on these. There are a lot of great websites as well that will give you templates that you can use. So the last one is to research your tax obligations. Now, I know there's a lot in this one section of treating your business like a real business. And I know that like now that we've hit tax, your head is probably ready to explode. But I just want to say this, every single one of the things in this section is really just about setting you up to make sure that you're as protected as you possibly can be, and that you're able to mitigate what you have to spend for all of this stuff, whether that's fines or penalties, or it's actually paying your taxes. So even though it doesn't feel fun and it's a lot, I think if you can just spend some time with this, you're going to be really thankful down the line, because it's going to help put more money back into your business. So I've listed here a bunch of regular or common tax obligations. I'm not going to go into all of them. It's way too early and we don't have enough wine for that. But these are some of the ones to look into. I always do recommend for people, to talk to a CPA, a certified public accountant, even if it's just a one-time session to get a sense for what you need to be thinking about. And then you can go DIY your taxes if that's something that makes sense for you. There are also a lot of great tools out there that will help you with some of these specific taxes, like sales tax or payroll taxes. So just real fast, the list: income tax, that's obviously the tax that we pay on the money our business makes. Self-employment taxes, this is a US concept, and these are the taxes that we make on the money we earn from our own businesses. So we pay it as individuals, not the business, but it's on our earnings from the business. Employee taxes, so if you have employees on your payroll, you have to pay taxes for them. Sales or service tax, so these are taxes on the products or services that you sell. Estimated tax payments, these are typically for income tax, and these are payments you have to make on a monthly or quarterly basis, depending on where you are, against basically the tax liability that you'll owe. And then the last are asset taxes, probably not as relevant for this group, but if you own any business property, and some places even do what's called an equity tax, which is a tax on the value of your business, that's something to be aware of. So I always say this: if you protect yourself and your business, if you establish legitimacy in your business and you treat your business as the real business it is, it's going to go a long way towards making you more money. So at this point, I always like to ask people, are you treating your business like a real business? And I see everybody's like heads kind of shrink down. It's okay if you're not yet. These are, I've given you kind of all the steps to start thinking about. We're going to talk about at the end of this, like exactly what to focus on. But just know that these are things that you should be working on, and don't feel like you have to accomplish them all today. So the second of the 3 steps in treating your business or in setting up a financially fit business is to set up easy to use systems to track the money in your business. So now we're like getting into the money stuff. So I love this quote: so often people are working hard at the wrong thing. Working on the right thing is probably more important than working hard. And this is by the co-founder of Flickr. Having the right systems in place are going to save you time, money, and hassle. And this is not just related to money stuff. I'm sure you know this is the case in every aspect of business. There are a few different systems you should have in place, and I'm going to talk about each of them. The first is the system for your accounting. So these are the numbers in your business. This is tracking the money in, tracking the money out, your expenses, your revenues, your profits. Which system you choose is going to depend on 2 things typically: the type of business you have. Are you service-based, products-based? Are you, retail? Are you in person? Are you, international? Are you domestic? And it's also going to depend on your stage of business. So if you're just starting out, you're probably going to want to choose a system that's maybe a little bit simpler, doesn't have maybe as many features. You may not have employees, so maybe you don't need that piece. Versus if you've been in business for a while and now you've got more of a robust business model, you have more revenue lines, so you need something that's more robust. There are lots of great options out there. One of my favorites for people just starting out in service-based businesses is Wave Apps. It's actually free to use and it's very easy to set up. If you are needing more features, if you are in a product-based business, or if you have to worry about sales tax or payroll tax or inventory or anything like that, QuickBooks or Xero, it's Xero, are great options as well. And lastly, just choose one that's easy to set up and use. I work with a lot of people who have set up their own accounting systems and they come to me and they're not using them, and it's because they chose one that doesn't work for their style. And so they're not going to use it, of course, because it makes them want to rip their hair out. So choose one that works for you, that you can follow along and understand easily. But it is important to have some system in place. And I always say this, even if you don't feel totally ready to dive into all of the money stuff, or if you're not sure what system to choose, just choose one. Get started now, because the earlier you can start tracking your numbers, the easier it'll be when you actually go in and start trying to do analysis with the data you've collected. So the second system to have set up is a system for your receipts. Now, oftentimes this may be part of the accounting system you choose, so this may not be a separate system. It is important to make sure that whichever one you choose integrates with your accounting system. So sometimes, like there's, I think it's called HubDoc, integrates with QuickBooks, versus like Wave Apps, the accounting system I recommended, they have their own receipts tool. It's Receipts by Wave. So you just want to make sure that they do integrate, so that when you upload a receipt, it's going to automatically sync to your accounting system. It's so important to track your receipts consistently and to make sure that you have good records. This is important not only for audit purposes, which is kind of the main reason, but also to make sure that you're capturing appropriately every business expense. When it comes to tax time, you want to make sure that you've maximized your deductions, and having all of your receipts is a good way to do that. I often get asked at this point, okay, well, do I have to save every receipt? Technically, no. I believe the current IRS rule is $25 or more, but I'm going to tell you this honestly, I would save them all. At least with me, if I start adding in these exceptions, I don't have to save these because they're under $25, then I'm just not going to save any of them. And the system kind of goes away. So for me, my system is every receipt gets saved. Okay. So the next type of system to set up, and this is if you are a service-based business, is an invoicing system. So again, this is going to depend on the type of business, how your model works, but I'm going to say this again, you want to make sure you choose one that's easy to use, easy to set up, and easy to follow up. The importance of having a really good invoicing system is that it will manage your cash flow for you. So what do I mean by that? If you do not have a good invoice system that when somebody owes you money, you enter in the invoice and it follows up with them until they pay, then it's going to be on you to manually do that every couple of weeks or month or whatever it is. And it's been my experience that when business owners rely on doing that manually, it becomes a cash flow issue because they'll get behind, they've got other work they've got to do. Now all of a sudden they're 2 months behind. They've got to go in, check on who owes them money, follow up. At that point, the person is less likely to pay them, and it becomes a huge headache. So having a system that can do a lot of this for you, and also just track it for you, is really important. Even if you're not a service-based business, let's say you're a products-based business, it's also important to have a good system where people can pay you, right? So it's funny, I was working with a business owner recently for a product. I'm totally blanking on what it was actually, but it was really complicated to actually pay for the product. Like I think it was because it was through PayPal, and I had to wait for her to send me an invoice, and then I had to pay, but I couldn't use my PayPal account. I had to like send a check, or it was very, very complicated. And this was for a physical product. And I just remember thinking, like, most people are not going to go through these hoops to give you money. So make it as easy as possible to give you money. And also, having a good system for this stuff in place is important because it will help you understand what you have coming in. And so if you ever need to go back and pull your numbers, see what your sales were, do some analysis, it's easy to get those out of these systems. So the next system to have is a system for your legal documents. And again, I said this a few minutes ago, but while you may not think legal documents have anything to do with the money, they absolutely do. Because if you end up in a dispute, or you're trying to follow up with somebody or figure out, what you can charge them, you're going to need to have easy access to those contracts, to those documents, so that you can go back and review the terms. So I like to have a system for my legal documents as well, where I can not only create templates that I can easily send to people, but I can also track when those documents are signed. I can view the signed documents, and it also serves as kind of a final file repository for me. The next one is our tax filing. So I always say automate whatever you can. Unfortunately, there's actually not a lot that you can automate in the tax world, which is kind of frustrating. But the more you can automate, the better. I have seen tools out there for sales tax, for payroll taxes, nothing for income tax yet, unfortunately. The second piece of this is to have a system for your estimated tax payments. So if you're in the US, these are going to be quarterly. And just make sure you've got a system in place. For me, it's actually a 2-hour blocked out spot on my calendar every quarter. And it's a repeating event, so it's basically goes on forever, for me to sit down and go through all my numbers, figure out what I owe, and make those payments. But it's important to have a system for that so that you don't miss those. So again, I'm going to reiterate, choose the systems that are easy to set up and that are going to work for you and work best for your business. Because if you don't, then you're just not going to use them, and then you're not going to get the benefits of them. So I like to always ask this. I know I don't know if we have anybody on live, but I always ask, what's the first word that comes to mind when you think about tracking the money in your business? And I'll tell you what some people have told me. They're not good words. Usually it's like stressed out, don't want to do it, hate this stuff, which I totally get. Oh, so did somebody say, oh no, I can never move my mouse over on Zoom. I don't know if you can see it, Stephanie. My computer hates me. So I see it blinking, but I can't open it up. Technology, I'm not a tech girl, I'm a money girl. So the reason I asked that question is because I know that this stuff doesn't seem like a lot of fun. I think it's fun, but I'm like the random freak. But here's the thing, and as we get into our last step, I think hopefully I'm going to help you see why it's so important and how maybe it can be a little bit fun. And the reason is because even though tracking all of this stuff seems like bleh, if you do this, and if you have these good systems in place, not only does it get rid of the stress and you feel in control, and that's all great, but it will help you make more money. And I think making more money is a lot of fun because it allows me to do more things in my business. So step number 3 is to establish regular check-ins to review the money in your business. And while that in and of itself may not seem that exciting, I'm going to show you guys at the end why that can actually put more money in your pocket. So one more quote. I love quotes. Success doesn't come from what you do occasionally. It comes from what you do consistently. This is Marie Forleo, who I love. And I think that this is such an important thing to remember when we're thinking about the money stuff. So regular money check-ins help you focus on the things that make you more profit and spend less time on the things that don't. And this is one of the biggest mistakes I see people making in their business, is focusing on the wrong things because they haven't checked in to see what is actually bringing them in the most profits. So money meetings, as I call them, are semi-monthly or monthly meetings. You can start off with weekly if that's better for you. Typically allow 30 to 60 minutes for these. If you're doing it monthly, probably 60 minutes. If you're doing it semi-weekly or weekly, 30 minutes. Definitely put it on the calendar. Again, this is on my calendar for the rest of my life. I do mine every 2 weeks, and it's on my calendar forever. This is non-negotiable time. This does not get moved. The only thing that's ever gotten moved for is a vacation once. Never gets moved for anything. Completely non-negotiable. My entire team knows this. Nothing can be scheduled during this time because it's that important. So I also love this quote. I'm such a quote girl. Do the best you can in every task, no matter how unimportant it may seem at the time. No one learns more about a problem than the person at the bottom. This is Sandra Day O'Connor, Supreme Court Justice. And what I love about this quote is if you are not checking in on the numbers in your business, then how can you know what's going wrong? We're checking in on our Instagram followers, we're checking in on our website visitors and traffic, checking in on our email open rates and all of that. But if we're not checking in on the numbers, we just don't know what's actually going on in our business. So when you know your numbers, you can solve problems more quickly, make smarter business decisions, and earn more money, which is the cool part. So I wanted to tell you guys about 3 examples. Let me just make sure, I want to pull up my notes to make sure I can give you guys all the right details on this. So I had a client, this was actually really cool. So we discovered, so we started to dive into her numbers, and we just discovered that, hold on, where are my notes? Where are my notes? Okay, cool. So we discovered it was costing her nearly 50% of her revenue to obtain each client. That's a huge client acquisition cost. And she was doing that through a few different ways. She was doing Facebook ads, but she was also doing a lot of, she would pay to go to events where she would network, which is not a bad idea in and of itself, but she had a lot of money going into that aspect of her marketing. So over 50% of her revenue was actually bringing in each client. So we did a few things. We reduced some of her expenses. We cut back on those events. We really looked at which ones had actually returned her the most amount of clients versus the other ones that probably really didn't. We did some finagling with the Facebook ads and really fine-tuned those. Not me personally. We brought in a Facebook ads expert. And some of her other expenses that I'm forgetting right now. She had a few other marketing expenses we cut back on. We also increased her prices. That was actually a huge thing for her, was she wasn't charging that much at all. So we increased her prices, and we ended up raising her profit margin to over 70%, meaning that now instead of 50% of her revenue going to obtain each client, 30%. And that's actually still coming down and down and down and down and down as she's building up a solid client base, and now she's getting referrals. So that's continuing to go down. But that got her more than $200 per client every single month. So, and that was just literally, we spent like 20 minutes looking at her numbers, and I was like, hold on, why is your client acquisition cost so crazy? So that's one example for you. Another example, this is actually one of my favorites because this literally took all of about 5 minutes. This was a new client. I told her to bring me her profit and loss statement, her income statement, which shows her revenues and her expenses for about 3 months. And I looked at it and I said, you have a really long list of services you're paying for. Like, it was MailChimp and ConvertKit and Linktree and Kajabi and, like, I'm trying to remember, like pretty much every tool you've ever heard of was on her list. And I said, this is a lot. Are you using all of this? She was like, oh, I think I signed up for those and I forgot. And this is a classic example of somebody who was terrified to look at her numbers. She didn't have the time. She didn't want to deal with it. She was afraid of what she'd find. So she hadn't looked at her numbers in months. And lo and behold, she was spending about $300 extra every month on stuff she never even used. So 5 minutes, we cut that all out. And boom, she's $300 richer every single month without any pain or any change to her business otherwise. So another client, this is one of my favorites. Now, this took a little bit more work. This took a little bit more analysis. But so she's a high-end coach. She has a $2,000 VIP package, which is a lot of one-on-one time with her. Plus she has some additional like workbook resource type things. So when she came to me, she says, this is what I do. This is my big money maker. This is what I want to focus on because this is making me a lot of money. But she also said, she goes, I'm feeling really burned out and I don't know what I should do. I don't know if I should raise my prices. I don't know if I should bring on like other people to help me with the coaching. And she was feeling really stressed. So we looked at her numbers and she had this other revenue item on her income statement, and it was for a course. And I said, well, what's that? And she said, oh, that's my course. I sell it for just about $500. And I said, well, hold on, let's dig into that. Well, it turns out her course, she's already created it. She's found it pretty easy to sell. She's got a good funnel for it. She does a little bit of Facebook advertising, get some people in, plus people on her email list and in her community are still buying it. And she doesn't actually do any one-on-one guidance with it she doesn't do Q&As or anything like that. She literally just sells the course. It's evergreen. They buy it. They go on their merry way. It's a $500 course. So her profit margin on her course is like almost 100%. It's over 95%. The only expense for that course is Kajabi to host it every month and a little bit of Facebook ads. And that's it. And so I was like, hold on. Your biggest profits are actually in your course. Now, I didn't tell her to move away from the one-on-one coaching that she loved. I said, but you've got this huge profit maker over here. Let's ramp that up, put more Facebook ads into that, figure out ways you can get that out there more because that's making you a bigger profit. Meanwhile, on the one-on-one side, we did increase her prices. We talked about how we can bring some of her expenses down, but we positioned it in a way so that she didn't have to work as hard and feel as burned out because now she had more profitable money coming in from this course. And so she didn't have to bust her butt trying to get every client possible into this one-on-one program. So that's the power of knowing your numbers. And the reason why you want to have all of this stuff set up that I've talked about today is because it's going to enable you on a regular basis to go in, know your numbers, make these kinds of analyses, understand where you can make changes, and ultimately be able to use that information to bring in more money into your business. So, I forgot I had one more. I totally forgot. Sorry. This one, this was great. I'll do this one quickly. This was a client who was actually losing money on every client. She never bothered to value her time. So when I went in and I talked to her, she said, I'm making, I forget what she was charging, but I make X per client. And I said, you make X per client? Is that after you pay yourself? And she said, well, no. She said, that's after Facebook ads or whatever her expenses were. And I said, well, what are you paying yourself? Well, it turns out she's losing money. So typical solution for a lot of my clients, we raised her prices. We helped her understand the value of her time. And now nearly 80% of her revenues are profit, so that she has sufficient cash to actually pay herself, so that her business can sustain her. So, I always ask people, do you want the confidence that comes from running a financially fit business? But it's more than confidence. It's about knowing that you are maximizing the profitability and the impact that your business can have, so that you're not feeling confused and overwhelmed. There's a lot of information out there, and I think we get kind of sucked into the vortex of that information, and you don't need to. You also don't need to be stressed about the money stuff in your business. I've been there, trust me. I know those nights of like worrying if I'm going to make enough money. I know those nights of worrying that I'm going to just have to work every moment of every day and not spend any time with my son because I need to make this business work. And I know that feeling of not wanting to focus on the money stuff, but still wanting to make sure it's all set up correctly. So if you go through these steps, you're going to have that confidence that comes with running a financially fit business. So to wrap it up, I wanted to give you just kind of a few action items, a few takeaways. If all of this feels super overwhelming, which I'm sure it may, here's what I want you to do. I want you to set aside 1 to 2 hours each week to focus on the money stuff. And that's the only time I want you to think about this money stuff. Go through the 3 big areas we talked about. Treating your business like a real business with all of the steps underneath it. Getting the right systems and processes set into place, and setting up your money meetings. And each week I want you to focus on one of those areas. And you're probably going to do this for a few months, right? So it's probably going to take you a few months to get through every single piece of all these areas. But if you just focus on one aspect of these every week, it won't feel as overwhelming, I promise. And also, don't feel like you have to figure all this stuff out right at the beginning. Like, you've got time. You can do this over time. I will say this though. If you're like, okay, great, I'll do that, but where do I start right now? I want you to do 2 things. If you haven't done these already, I want you to get a separate business bank account, and I want you to start tracking your numbers with an accounting tool or software. Don't stress about choosing the right one. Start with Wave Apps if you're a service-based business. It's free, it's easy to use. Just get it going so that you can get the numbers in your business tracked from this day forward. And I want you to remember this. You do not need to be a math genius to do this stuff. I am definitely not a math genius. I actually hated math, and I failed geometry in high school. So not a math person. You do not need to be a numbers person to do this. I kind of think I'm a numbers person, but I work with a lot of women who aren't, and they have mastered the money in their business. All you need is to care about running a financially stable business and devote just a little bit of time on a regular basis to check in with your numbers and not ignore them. That's the biggest thing I can give you to take away. So that's all I've got for you. It's been such a pleasure to be here today. I'm always happy to answer questions if people want to find me. I'm Meg K. Wheeler on Instagram, and my website is megkwheeler.com as well. I do have, for anybody who wants to take it a little bit further, I do have a course that opens enrollment in September, Biz Money Blueprint. It's pretty much all the topics we've covered, we go deeper into. And you can join the waitlist at bizmoneyblueprint.com. I've got a discount for anybody who joins my waitlist before I open that up. But that's all I've got for you. Hope that wasn't too much.
No, thank you so much, Meg. That was wonderful. This is going to be so valuable to so many moms that are going to watch this. This was great information for getting started in your business, having been in business for quite a few years now. Everything that Meg said, please listen to it and take it to heart, and take her course. And really, I wish when my first year of business, I had talked to somebody like Meg, because it would have made my life a lot easier. And after that, I learned my lesson on a lot of things. And if you want to be profitable and you want to make money. You need to get your stuff in order. So thank you so much for your time today. And we will leave all of your stuff in the email that we'll send out with the replay. And also, we will be listing you on our website too, so people can go back and watch this if they are just starting a business or need a refresh and need to know where they need to take their business to get financially fit. So thank you so much, Meg, for your time.
Oh, thank you. It's been a pleasure.